Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this call, and I'm really excited to be here with you. So my name is Imma Mwanja, but you can just call me Imma, and I'm the Global Projects Associate at Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. I live in Tanzania, and as the Global Projects Associate at HOT, I get to manage different projects and get to work with different community members or local communities that we're conducting the projects in, and different volunteers. So it's really exciting to get to be together with people and do projects that we know that have impact to the community. So for my background, I have a background in urban planning, urban and regional planning, and I majored in GIS. So I got involved with HOT back in 2015. I'm just giving you a little background so you can get to know me. So I got involved with HOT back in 2015. I think I was in my first year of university as a student intern, and they're doing a project called Ramani Huria that I'll talk a little bit about after this. And since then, I was introduced to the open source software, which was really exciting to me because as a student in Tanzania, a developing country, we didn't know about open source software. So most of the software that we were using were proprietary, and because we couldn't afford to pay for those, we would use cracked versions. So when I was introduced to OpenStreetMap and Open Mapping and QGIS and all this, it was just very mesmerizing for me. And since then, I decided to be like sort of an advocate of open data and open source software to the students so that they don't go through what I went through before. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I wanted you to know. And so for my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about HOT and then in the work that we do, and then I'll talk a bit about OpenStreetMap. Hope some of you or all of you know about OpenStreetMap. And I will talk about the tools that we use just briefly, because as Alex said before, we're just scratching the surface. And then I'll talk a bit about two case studies of the projects that we have been involved in. So HOT is an international NGO that is dedicated to humanitarian action and community development through open mapping. So we work to provide map data which supports disaster management, risk reduction, and contribute to achievement of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So around the world, natural disasters, as many of you know, and humanitarian crises affect millions of individuals. And yet, in many of these areas where the disasters occur, the communities where these individuals live are quite literally missing from the map. Let's say, take an example of if you go to Google and if you Google a remote location in, let's say in Tanzania, you might not find, or you will not find enough data that can help you as a first responder, for example, to get to that place, because most of the information that is found there is, for commercial purposes. So only developed areas you'll find this information. And so this makes it difficult for first responders to deliver life-saving aid and plan disaster relief efforts. So we're working to create detailed digital maps of the world's places which currently do not have detailed maps. So as HOT, we're working towards a world where everyone is counted, map data is accessible and used in decisions that save and improve lives, and also to make sure that everyone can engage and contribute to the map. That's why we're using open source, OpenStreetMap. So as HOT has facilitated mapping projects, these are field projects together with remote mapping projects in over 163 countries over the world. In the map there, you can see different locations that we have been involved in, and some of them are remotely and some of them are going physically in the field. And so our work spans field data collection activities as well as remote mapping projects, and it's supported by a global community of over 300,000 volunteers. And so through some hubs, regional hubs that are, through 4 regional hubs that are being created right now, over the next 5 years, we are planning to reach 94 countries in order to, you can say, spread the word and work with the local communities there. So as a member of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, HOT is committed to align its work with the Sustainable Development Goals, as I mentioned before. And so listed here, you'll see the 5 of our global priority areas, and these reflect the majority of the types of projects that we work on. But however, open mapping can be applied to any local development challenge, in addition to the impact areas that I'm showing you here. So you can, apart from the 5 impact areas that I'm showing you here, you can apply the open mapping in several vast areas as well. So yeah, that was mainly talking about myself and about HOT, but I'm going to take you through OpenStreetMap a bit and the tools that we use to implement some of the projects that we use. So OpenStreetMap is a collaborative project that is used by different people. It's open to the public. It's a public good. So we're working together to build a free and open map of the world using OpenStreetMap. As you can see, the map, that's a small demonstration of Dar es Salaam, a city in Tanzania, of how it's populated in OpenStreetMap. And we call OpenStreetMap a Wikipedia of maps because anyone can add to the map. It's a public good, so valuable data can be used by local actors, and this means that all data on OpenStreetMap is free and open to access, use, download, incorporate in offline analysis applications, etc. So yeah, you can use it for different purposes. And I also mentioned that the maps are critical in the hours, days, or even weeks after a disaster, but they're also key in anticipatory action, example, to help communities on preparedness for the next major disaster or disease outbreaks, to give an example. So HOT mobilizes thousands of contributors around the world who work together to provide map data in OpenStreetMap for humanitarian disasters and community development projects, so that missing maps are no longer a factor in human suffering or loss of life in humanitarian crisis. And we do this, reaching people and conducting these different projects, as I said before, using 2 major ways. And this is remote mapping, which involves the tracing of buildings, roads, rivers, and other critical infrastructure features on satellite images using a simple web tool called the Tasking Manager. And also we do local mapping, which involves adding local knowledge to tag features such as place names, schools, hospitals, and different amenities. And then these maps are checked by expert mappers that we call validators to make sure that the map, the data that is added is useful and can be used by the general public. So this is it's not even a demonstration because they're just photos, but of how it works. So for remote mapping, I said before that we digitize on satellite imagery and add the map, add the data on the map. On the left, you'll see an imagery and you'll see like several buildings. So those are the buildings that are being traced, and later they appear as digital footprints on the map. And on the right, you'll see is a tool. This is OMK Open Map Kit. We use it to add different data on the map together with ODK or Open Data Kit, which is used for field surveys, to add the data, which can be later uploaded to OpenStreetMap. So earlier I touched a little bit about the mapping web tool that is used at HOT. So this is called the Tasking Manager. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it. I would love to know how many of you heard of it. So Tasking Manager is an open source tool developed by HOT. And it divides, for example, a large mapping project into smaller tasks that can be completed rapidly and collaboratively with many people contributing to collective project goals. Like I mentioned before, HOT has already worked or is already working with over 300,000 volunteers who are doing remote mapping and field mapping. And for those that are doing remote mapping, they're mainly using Tasking Manager. And so this approach allows the distribution of tasks to many individual mappers, and it also allows monitoring of the project process and helps to improve the consistency of map. And all the work is done through OpenStreetMap. So yeah, it's a really awesome tool. And if some of you haven't heard of it, I would definitely recommend going to use it. I see Jihan has already shared a link on for Tasking Manager. Yeah, so that was about OpenStreetMap and the tools that we use in field data collection or remote mapping. I am going to take you through two case studies that we have done that, we feel like they have had impact to the community, and I have been involved in myself. So the first example is the project that we did in Peru that was mapping to support COVID-19 response. It's a part of a large-scale response to the global pandemic that obviously all of us know about. And so I'll show you two images, and this first one, it shows they'll demonstrate a large mapping campaign that was undertaken in partnership with the Peruvian regional government in response to COVID-19 in Cusco, Peru. And so incomplete and inaccurate maps can leave whole communities out of the picture when governments plan how to provide essential services. And the Peruvian government scrambled to support citizens and struggled to reach the most vulnerable. This is the second image where you will see over a duration of 2 months in the last year, over 10,000 volunteers mapped hundreds of thousands of buildings and complete road network in Cusco, Peru. The orange clouds you can see there are buildings that were added, and the blue streaks there are the roads that we added. So the Cusco region poses particular challenges to public health workers with a dispersed population of over 1.3 million people living in rural areas, ranging from inaccessible jungle to highland areas, well over 4,000 meters above sea level. The existing government data from the 2017 census maps people in rural areas only to the village level. And in case of, let's say, mountain villages or hamlets, this can mean that the community dispersed over many square kilometers of mountainous terrain. This makes the finding and reaching of these individuals or households, let alone regularly visiting and tracing health indicators, extremely challenging. So the mapping response in Peru allowed new detail down to the individual household level. So using the map data, dashboards were prototyped to enable Peruvian government to locate populations most at risk from COVID-19. These populations most at risk, they were then the areas were then prioritized for support through measures like hand washing stations to reduce transmission, universal cash payments, and baskets of food and basic goods to sustain people through the quarantine period, as well as the maternal and child health. And the map data was also used to identify markets and other public areas that could potentially be places of high rates of transmission of COVID-19. And yeah, so, and the map data also helped to deliver oxygen tanks to 900 patients at home due to the hospital overflow. So you'll see two images there. The one on the right is someone that is taking an oxygen tank to his home because the hospitals, as I mentioned, were over flooded. So it was, difficult to, even give them oxygen tanks. So we had to take the tanks to the individuals are in their homes. And so the oxygen was delivered to non-hospitalized patients who are often safer at home as the hospitals within Cusco are running over capacity. The second final project that that I'm going to talk about is the Ramani Huria project. And this project is really personal to me. As I mentioned before, it's the project that introduced me to HOT back in 2015, where I joined as a student intern, like just doing digitization. But over time, it developed to become a huge project, which was mainly focused on making Dar es Salaam, which is the largest and most developing city in Tanzania, more flood resilient. It was done by key partners, which include the local communities, which are really crucial. I cannot stress how much the local communities are crucial in when we're doing data collection, because they know their neighborhoods best. And so it's really key to include them or involve them when doing data collection or field activities. And also we worked with university students from two universities in Tanzania. One of them was Ardhi, and this is how I got involved in the project myself. So in the project, as I said, the project was focused on flooding and making the city more flood resilient. So we collected different data that were contributing to the flooding itself. So data ranging from drainage, soil, assets or amenities that are in risk of flooding, and solid waste, etc. And this data was crucial to the local governments that are in those areas, because it helped them to make a case point for when, for example, they want to ask for money from the city council to improve their infrastructure, etc. It was, yeah, really critical for them. So yeah, I said that for this project, we worked with the local communities, and we involved over 3,000 community members in the data collection, involved over 1,000 students in the project, and even some community members were, volunteering because they saw what impact the project can have to them. So by the end of the project, we had created an early warning system and a flood simulation model that is helping and is being used and is being improved to warn about the floodings that can occur in Dar. And also the maps are being used by the local community or city councils to, like I said before, make a case point in the areas that they flood, and improving, for example, their solid waste management services. Thank you. That is it for my presentation. I will welcome if there are any questions for me.